Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to change the front wheel bearings in your prime Attaquer disc wheel. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. Right, so here we have the wheel. So first thing I've done is remove the disc out of the way, just to keep it from getting damaged or anything. So next thing to do is the end cap. This is the disc side where your disc rotor will go. You've got the cap on there. Now you should be able to get hold of that cap and pull that off by hand. If not, then if you've got a vice, get some soft jaws in the vice and just clamp that in the vice and then pull up on the wheel and it should come off. That's another way of getting it off if you can't pull it off by hand. If you haven't got a vice, then obviously put some tape round there and then a rag over the end and get a pair of pliers on it and just pull it off like that if you can't pull it off by hand. But you should be able to get hold of it and pull that off like that. Then you'll see the axle there and the bearing down inside. So once you've done that, then we need to get that axle out. So it comes out of the non-disc side here. As you can see, the chamfered end cap on this side as opposed to the one like that on the opposite side for the disc. So what we'll do, we go ahead and get that out. So to get the axle back through, obviously you can see the end of the axle there. Now you don't want to just get a hammer and hit that, because if you put a slight burr on it or anything, then that'll be ruined. So what you want to do is get yourself a bolt with a washer like that, so it's sticking up, as you can see. So this just happens to be aluminium with an aluminium washer there. So you see, you can sit that on there like that. So then what we do is lay that down. I'll just show you in a sec, and then we can hit that without actually hitting the end of the axle with a hammer and damaging it. Well, as you see, I've got two blocks of wood there, both equal heights, on a hard surface. Now if you've got a vice and you've got soft jaws and protection on the top of the vice and everything, then you can use the top of a vice to do it. But like I'm showing this just to prove you don't need nothing special to do it with, you don't need any special tools or anything like that. This is just making it simple for you so you can do it at home. So we got the wheel. Now what we need to do is rest it on the two blocks of wood there. We're using obviously wood so it doesn't damage the aluminium of the hub or the spokes. And then, like I showed, you got your bolt with a washer on it just to go on top of there like that. And then we'll hit down on that so as we get the axle to move on the opposite side with the bearing on it, because the cap on this end, like I showed, is chamfered like that, so you can't get hold of that and to pull it off by hand or anything like that. So like I say, I'll just rest that on there like that, and then we'll hit down on there using protection on the end of it like that so it doesn't damage the axle. Right, so we gave that a couple of good taps on there, so I'll take out the bolt. If you turn it over, as you can see, what's happened is it popped out the end cap there, and you can see the bearing in there as well. So what we need to do is you can just get hold of that end cap. Now you can actually get your fingers behind it. You can see it coming away there, and the bearing is also with it there, with the axle. So we need to get that out of there, like that. And there you have the axle, the bearing and your end cap on there. So if you pull that off like that, then you can just get your bearing off the end. Then we've got that bearing out already. It's just left with your axle then. So then what you do is get your wheel. You see the bearing is still in the disc side here. So what you need to do then to get that out is we just use one block of wood and we just rest it down like that on the block of wood. Now there's a couple of different ways of knocking that out. If you've got a punch, you can use a punch like that. You can get yourself a socket like that, 13mm socket that is. So if you sit that down in there like that, put an extension, little extension bar on it, and you can just rest that down in there and use that then to hit out the bearing. So there's a couple of options for you. So as you can see, I've just got an extension on the socket there like that. We just hold it on the bearing at the bottom. And there we have it, removed from this side. So that's both bearings removed, so we got a couple of new ones there. Now always use quality bearings from known manufacturers, don't use any cheap ones because they just don't last 5 minutes. They're far inferior quality to any well-known branded ones. So first thing we do, so obviously what you want to do is wipe round out any old grease in the hub, both sides, before you reinstall your bearings. And then we get some fresh grease and just put round there where the bearing's going to sit. Just put a light coat in there. And then we'll just put some around the outside of the bearing as well. And also we put a bit of a coat on the face that you don't see, the face that's going to be sat inside the hub that you don't see. If you're riding in poor conditions, what happens is the water is what ruins your bearings as well, not just the mileage. It's more often than not the bad conditions, because the water gets in and destroys them. So what I'll do is we'll sit that in place in there, making sure that when you start it off it's not going in crooked. So just push it in with your hand as best you can, just to start it off. Now if you want to go out and buy a press to put it in with, if you haven't got one, then you need the correct size adapters for the bearings. I'll put the size of the bearings in the description so you know what they are to purchase. But like I say, if you're going to buy a press, you need the one with the right adapters on for these actual size bearings. Now if you haven't got one, what you can do is put them in, is get yourself a 19mm socket, which is exactly the same size as the outside of the bearing. Don't hit, never hit on where the seal is on the bearing, the black seal or the coloured seal, whatever you got on yours, because you'll ruin it before you've even put it in. And I'm showing you this like this so you could do the job at home. You don't need any special tools, you don't need to spend a lot of money on anything to do it with. If you've got the correct presses, then go ahead and use the correct presses. If you haven't, then you can hold that socket over the bearing like that, just in place, directly over it, and then all you got to do is go around and tap that in, making sure that it's not going in crooked when you hit it in. Make sure you're hitting it in square. So we go round and we put that in. Right, so there we have the bearing installed. So next thing we need to do is put in the opposite side bearing, the non-disc side. So with your axle, if you need to clean that off, give it a wipe off, any old grease and that. Just put some grease around the ends on both sides, like that. And then with your bearing, the opposite side, just put a coat over the inside again that you're not going to see. It's going to be down inside the hub, like that. And then slide that onto the axle, like that. You should just be able to push it on by hand. And then what we do is we turn the wheel over to the non-disc side. And again, where the bearing's going to sit in the actual hub, just put a bit of grease around there. Like that. and then with your axle just lower that in, see, locating it in the bearing you've already put in on the disc side, like that. Slide it into position and just sit it in there like that. And once you've done that, again you can get your socket, put it over like that, holding it in place, then just tapping in the bearing. Like so. So that's installed there. So now just need to put the end caps back on. So with the non-disc side you have the short end cap like that. So all we do is put a bit of grease over the bearing face like that, put a bit of grease around the actual end cap like that, and just on the inside of the end cap as well, just so it doesn't get stuck on at a later date, just helps it. And then you can pop your end cap back on, push it into place like that, and then we turn the wheel over to the disc side, do the same thing with the end cap, just put some grease around it like that over the face of it, and just a bit on the inside there, stop it getting stuck on again at a later date, so you should be able to pull it off easy. Then push that in place like so. That's both bearings installed now with the end cap, so that's complete. Obviously spin your wheel like that just to check that they spin nice and free, which they should do, they're brand new bearings. And then you're ready then to refit your disc back on there and put the wheel back in the bike. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.